Hey, what is going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to rank every single gun in Royale Season 5. Now, I did previously do this for Season 4, however, quite a few things have changed as the loot pool is adjusted. We got new weapons like the purple and gold SMG, as well as the double barrel shotgun. We saw some vaults, like we lost the revolver, and there's also been adjustments to the stats. The semi-auto sniper got both a rarity adjustment and it got further adjusted in stats from the Chapter 2 Remix update. So in today's video, we're going to go through ranking every single gun. We're going to quickly go over the tiers, and then we'll go through each class. So shotguns, ARs, SMGs, pistols, snipers, and structure destroyers. Okay, so quickly with the tiers, X tier I would consider to be a weapon that is absolutely game-breaking. Think like the launch combat shotgun after the bug got fixed, the launched P90 that did 264 DPS, launched drum gun. These are weapons that are insanely broken and just define the entire game. You don't want to see any weapons here. S tier I consider to be very strong weapons, so I still think need a nerf, but they're not completely busted. Purple and gold tactical SMG from Chapter 1 is a good example. Really, really strong, but not completely game-breaking. A tier I consider to be those really solid options. Strong gun, doesn't need to be nerfed. Think the gold scar from Chapter 1, when it had less bloom, a faster reload, and more headshot damage. I think that was definitely a good example of an A tier gun. B tier I just consider to be a decent gun. It's good, no problems with it, works fine into the end game, but it's not exceptional by any means. C tier are just those kind of average, it works. Situationally can be good, but not the best. It's okay early game. D tier are the weapons that are just bad. Early game, you can get away with them, but you want to replace them by the time you're leaving your first town. And then F tier is the joke tier. Think like the automatic sniper when it first launched in Season 10. Like, that thing was an absolute joke. It's in a situation where you could genuinely make an argument that the pickaxe is a better weapon. That's not a good situation for any weapon to be there. Okay, let's start out with the shotguns. Starting out with the tac shotgun. Tac shotgun I still think is a decent, solid B tier option. It's not exceptional by any means. I do think there's two options that are better than it, but it's a good learning tool as it's easy to use, widespread, fast rate of fire. You don't need an SMG. It's a solid option. If you can run this into the end game, and you're going to be perfectly fine. The pump shotgun, I think, is a bit better in A tier. Being able to do over 100 body damage, I think, is really important, as all you have to do is hit 2 clean body shots, and while, yes, you can't headshot or one-shot someone with a critical hit, I don't think that's as big of an issue, as unless you're really good and have really solid aim, most people are only hitting those shots every once in a while, so I do think it's still a really solid option. Something to also keep in mind is the pump shotgun drops faster than the tac shotgun, so if you're making some edit plays, that can be a nice advantage. Heavy shotgun, I'd also give A tier. I think it's very competitive with the pump. In terms of headshot damage, it almost has the same headshot, has a higher multiplier, but it does a lot less base damage, only 77 versus 110. It shoots a little faster, a little more range, but a slower draw. Heavy versus pump, I think both are competitive. In the last video I was saying I was preferring the heavy. These days I've been taking the pump more, but that just really goes to show that both are perfectly competitive, and I really don't see one being way better than the other. You can kind of take either option here. And then the new shotgun we have for Season 5 is the double barrel shotgun. I'd give it a B tier. It's pretty good. It's situationally really good, but the problem is it's high risk, high reward, right? Because if you miss those 2 shots, you only do 20 damage, it's going to be a big problem, as you now have to reload for about 3 seconds. So I think it's a decent option, and for some players, it will work really well, but for other players, they're going to find it absolutely terrible. So I think it's a decent choice, but not exceptional. Okay, let's move on to the ARs. Starting out with the standard AR, I honestly give it C tier these days. It's just been nerfed so many times compared to the historical Chapter 1 version, which I give B tier. It's gotten a bloom nerf, reload nerf, and headshot multiplier nerf. I just don't think the standard AR is that amazing anymore. I give it C tier. It's okay. And the Scar, I'd give it B tier. It's a solid option, but it's no longer a really strong option like you had in Chapter 1 where I'd give it A tier. I think the standard AR is just stepped down a tier. It's still a good weapon. It's not bad, but it's not quite as good as it used to be. Now, the burst rifle, for whatever reason, only has one model from gray to gold, so I'm just going to use the one model it has, which is the FAMAS. I think it's C. It's fine. It only has a 2 burst. I don't have a problem with the 2 burst necessarily. Certain things like peeking out and then hitting a triple headshot, you can't do that anymore. But you could argue it's a bit more consistent with the 2 burst. It's just okay. It does the job. Silenced AR has actually been really solid. It hasn't really been nerfed since Chapter 1. And what that means is that, well, in historical Chapter 1, in Project Nexus or UEFN, I'd say it's a little bit worse than the Scar. I think now that the Scar's been nerfed so many times, the Silenced AR it's an equal, right? I think both are super competitive. The Scar is a bit better at close range, has a little more DPS, but the Silenced AR is more accurate if you tap fire. It's better at long range. I think both are very competitive. Your other AR options, you've got the Sculpt AR, which I think is very bad. The Sculpt AR got a rate of fire nerf relative to Chapter 1, but it also has damage fall off now. So even though it does a bit more damage at close range, which is kind of irrelevant, you're not using the Sculpt AR at close range. At long range, it does the same or even less damage, and you shoot at almost half the speed. It's not good. It's borderline F tier, but I'm not going to quite put it there. I think it's D. It's overall pretty bad. The Thermal AR, I do think is significantly better than it was in Chapter 1, though, as it does less damage, but it fires way faster. So it is actually a genuinely interesting option. I'd give it C tier. It's an okay option. Against the Standard AR and the high tier burst, I think you could take it over those two, but it's really up to you to decide if you like the playstyle. As at close range, it's very bad, so keep that in mind. Now moving to the LMG. The LMG I think is C tier. It's alright. It's got a lot less bloom than it did in Chapter 1, but has less DPS and a smaller mag. I think it's fine. It can kind of work both as an SMG and an AR, so you could go either way there. I think it's alright. Just give it a C tier. It's in line with the standard AR, regular SMG, that kind of strength. Just kind of okay weapons. Let's move on to the SMG class. Starting out with the standard SMG, I'd give the C tier. I definitely do think it is a step above the tactical SMG that's replacing. It's not great, but it's not the worst weapon in the world. It's just kind of okay. The purple and gold variants, though, I do think are much better, particularly the gold. Because the gold does 20 damage, it takes one less shot to eliminate someone, which is huge. And the purple and gold SMGs with their quick reloads, I genuinely think is the first good SMG we've had in Rewind Royale. You know, previously, the SMGs were either terrible and the drum gun was kind of okay, but the P90 I genuinely think is actually good, and I do recommend you give it a try, because you may find it's actually very effective and very helpful, especially if you want to run a silenced AR or especially a thermal AR, which aren't the best at close range. A purple gold SMG can really help you out there. The drum gun I'd say is C tier. It's just okay. The DPS is rather low. It does have that big magazine, which is nice. It's not like the tactical SMG where it's really bad, but it's not great overall. You could argue this is like an AR type weapon, but I just think it's too inaccurate to use it like that. It's really more like an SMG. The silenced SMG I still think is D tier. It's still laughably bad. Against Chapter 1, it has a slower rate of fire, way more bloom, and does 2 less damage. It's just very bad. I highly recommend you do not take this and try and take the other SMG options, what I think are much more usable. Let's move into the pistols now. Starting out with the standard pistol. Standard pistol I'd give D tier. It's still not great. It does slightly more damage than in Historical Chapter 1, but still, the gray one does 24 damage, which means it takes 5 shots to eliminate someone early game. That's not good. I just don't think the pistol is particularly great. And the silenced pistol, I honestly put in the same position as the regular pistol, because while it does more damage, you have a smaller magazine. You have 4 less rounds, which makes a huge difference. You're constantly reloading. And while I think in Chapter 1, the silenced pistol was okay and situationally good, now it's just bad and situationally okay because of that magazine nerf. It's just not particularly good. Honestly, you could argue the green pistol is better than the purple silenced pistol, and that's just kind of the situation here. The hand cannon, I think, is C. It's fine. Without L2, being able to be used, I don't think it really works as well on controller as it used to. It's fine. It's just okay. Nothing exceptional. And the dualies I'd also give C. I think they're just okay. I believe they've gotten a 1 damage nerf since Historical Chapter 1, which is effectively irrelevant, but they're alright, but not the greatest weapon in the world. The draw speed really hurts, as if you go for a pump shot followed by dualies, you're losing a lot of time against using a regular SMG. Okay, let's move on to the snipers now. First one is Semi-Auto Sniper. Semi-Auto Sniper has been nerfed massively. So in the Season 5 update video, I noted that the rarity had been reduced from purple gold to green blue, which nerfed the damage by about 10, but now it's gotten another major nerf where it's lost about 20 damage. It's gone from 97-101 for green blue down to 75-78, which is historical to Chapter 1, believe it or not. And that's a pretty massive nerf, as now you can't one-shot anymore. I think it's just C tier. It's okay. It's a good training tool to learn how to snipe, but I would recommend if you're decent with snipers to go for the other 3 options, as not being able to one-shot does take a lot away from what made the semi-auto really good before. And it's kind of crazy to think that, just a couple weeks ago, I was ranking this thing S tier, and now it's gone all the way down to C. In terms of your other sniper options, you got the Bolt, which I think is just a B tier weapon. Against Chapter 1, you do have the glare, but you do a tiny bit more damage. It's just a decent sniper option. It's quite solid. Hunting rifle, you don't have the glare issue. It's B tier, solid. You can one-shot. If you're looking for a high rate of fire sniper, the hunting rifle may now be a better choice than the semi-auto sniper. And the heavy sniper, I'd give it B tier. The damage to walls has been heavily nerfed. The damage to players has also been nerfed significantly compared to Chapter 1. It does reload a little bit faster. I don't think it's any better than the bolt or hunting anymore. I think it's in line with them, and it's just a good option. It's B tier. Nothing wrong with it. Okay, finally, let's move on to the structure destroyers. Grenade launcher, I still think is S tier. It's incredibly broken as it's very easy to leak shots through builds. I still think this thing needs to be nerfed, and if you can find it, I would highly, highly recommend you carry it, as it's very easy to get free shots. The minigun and RPG, though, I still think are very viable. You know, the minigun hasn't really been nerfed really at all since historical late Chapter 1. It's still very solid, very high DPS. Would highly recommend running it. RPG is also really good. Reloads pretty quick, 2.5 seconds, I believe, for the gold, 130 damage. It's very good at close range, not that good at long range, but the combos you can do with RPG plus shotgun is very effective. Still a really good option, and honestly, any of the 3 structure destroyers are competitive. So now, just to conclude, in terms of shotguns, I think all 4 shotguns are competitive. In terms of ARs, you have standard AR, silenced AR, LMG and thermal are also viable, but the standard and silenced are probably your most competitive options, specifically the SCAR there. SMGs, the standard SMG and the drum gun are both competitive. Dualies kind of work in that role, and so could the hand cannon in limited cases. Snipers, I think all 4 are usable, but the bolt, hunting, and heavy are the best options. And then structure destroyers, you've got grenade launch, minigun, and RPG. And with that, I hope this video was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one.